Alright guys, have to come here again. I hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. With all the controversy on what OpTic should or could have done over the last few days, Scump now responds to some of the theories that maybe it should have been Scump returning to their pro roster for the rest of the season. Scump says, look, maybe he could have done it, but is it really making much sense to come back at this point in the season, given the legacy that Scump has to uphold and the realistic chances that they actually would turn it around? Would Scump returning actually improve their team? Maybe, maybe not. I'm sure that many would believe so. Does it make sense for OpTic or Scump? That's certainly what he has to talk about last night. Rambo also talking about iLLeY and why he's not got an offer this year. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. We've got some more Lion Man cards. This was the Minnesota Rocker, and an interesting stage really, because Nero, by the numbers, 88 overall, best player on the team in terms of, kills per round in search, was really impressive. His damage per 10 in hardpoint was the highest in the entire league in his role. Particularly impressive. Their hardpoint ended up 6 and 8 on the stage, 5 and 6 in search, 3 and 4 in control, which pretty much sums them up right. Like, good, but frankly just not good enough when it really mattered. And a lot of the search and destroys, the game 5 round 11s are really, really tough. And that's why really Estriel had a tough stage on paper. I still think Estriel is probably their best player. Maybe Geo, maybe Nero, I don't know, maybe Kenny. I don't know. You can go in a few different ways. Depends what you consider to be best, of course, because best in terms of accolades and who I would maybe build a team around. Obviously Kenny can be a valuable piece, but also if you're looking for pure gunny and talents, then Geo's certainly up there from an AR side. You can't count out Nero. This team on paper is good, but they're also kind of confusing, right? Estriel didn't really do that much this stage, I thought, and the numbers certainly reflect that, despite how good that I think he is, and I think he's a serious candidate to join a real top team next season, but maybe Geo and Nero are in a similar boat. So it's a confusing team because I feel like they should be better than they are, and they were pretty good. It's just they could not ice up at all in any map 4s or in any search and destroys, and that frankly is the difference this stage between them really catching up and reeling in OpTic Texas and them not. So is the team better with Kenny? I feel like they are better, they feel the eye test is better, but they just don't win still. So that's something that they've got to get over the line and figure out ASAP as well. And this is where they currently sit in our power rankings. We put them up to 8th, with Ravens dropping down to 9th right now. So this is the interesting piece. Ravens are probably going to lose to all of those teams above them on recent evidence, but they're still going to make it to the World Championships because of their excellent start to the season. But we've got Thieves number 1, Surge number 2. I mean, I think that's probably how it has to be now, right? Surge have made 2 grand finals in a row. FaZe bombed out top 6. So, and obviously Surge beat FaZe a couple of times recently as well. So right now, yeah, Surge are the second best team in the world ahead of FaZe on recent evidence. Toronto, kind of difficult to see where to put them, but putting them ahead of FaZe seems too premature. So realistically, Ultra, I guess, have to be 4th, FaZe are 3rd, Heretics are 5th, Boston are 6th, which is classic Boston, right? Somehow finding themselves in 6th there because they always play 6th, it just is what it is. And then when they play a better team in the second round, rather than in the first round, which they always seem to win, then it doesn't go to plan. OpTic, though, move up to 7th in our analysis, which is interesting, really, but I guess maybe somewhat justified. I mean, you'd think on this evidence that they should be fine to qualify, but really it's just Rocker versus OpTic, basically, for the stage here, and to make sure that OpTic actually can go out there to Kitchener for the World Championship. Cloud9, Gentamates, Falcons. I mean, Falcons have been 10th. I guess that's a win on some level, because those other 2 teams are not looking so good. It doesn't feel like Cloud9 are this bad. This feels a little bit harsh. But, I mean, the results at the end of the day, I guess, do speak for themselves. Speaking of FaZe, I did want to quickly mention that here's aBeZy loading into some Pro 8s. And you don't see this very often, right? You do see it sometimes with aBeZy, but not that commonly, really. Especially Simp doesn't really play them. I was just wondering whether there was anything to do with, okay, aBeZy thinks, all right, our hardpoint's not been great, need to work on it. Drazah's always playing hardpoint 8, so that's no surprise. But aBeZy being in there too, this was the series last night. Himself, Neptune, Johnny, and Super, with Skyz, aBeZy, Exnid, and Metals on the other side for Drazah. So very interesting stuff. Just thought I'd keep an eye on it, really, because FaZe, obviously, their hardpoint was a big talking point of the stage and something they will have to drastically turn around. I do wonder what that Gentamates team is going to do as well. Linz even said yesterday, need a team for the Cup this week, trying to win it. I mean, not trying to lose it, let's be real. So, it's trying to play in the Cup. And Gentamates going to bring him back. look, if they continue to suck, he's going to be back on that team for the World Cup. It just is what it is. They'll put some French players in like they did last year. That would be my expectation anyway. But a couple of things to share for you guys. I mean, it's great to see that Vancouver Surge, they're doing the media tour, right, after a great recent performance. But yeah, here is, of course, Rambo playing some PGA, whatever this game is. And, well, he's discussing a little bit about iLLeY, right? Of course, they worked together in the past as well. And this year, iLLeY's had, well, a tricky season, to say the very least, right? Of course, last year wasn't great. It was all the drama. This year, he comes in, and it feels like it's not, you know, gone to plan in challenges, has it, right? Like, that's the big difficulty for iLLeY, and it's not like he's had a great challenges year either, by any means. And, well, where does he go from here, right? So he was asked the question, right? And Rambo says, hey, a lot of politics, right, for iLLeY's career. And I think that is the primary point, is that for iLLeY, there's a lot of things that have happened over the last couple of seasons. The big one really being whatever happened at that Boston major last year, and even the thumb drama that happened slightly before that, right? So, you know, lots has happened with iLLeY. Is he going to get an opportunity back in? It feels, right now, it feels pretty unlikely for iLLeY, and that certainly seems to be what Rambo implies.
What do you think the one reason to hold him in the back joining the league? You think he just isn't that good this year? I don't know. There's a lot of things there that, I think there's a lot of politics there, probably, be my guess. But has he, like, performed in a way that's like, yeah, this guy belongs and has to be in the league? I don't know if he's necessarily performed at that level this year. But you could argue that a lot of players that are in the league right now have not performed at a league level playing, I guess, is the way I would describe it. So you could think about that in like 20 different ways, to be honest.
Yep, who usually y'all's person on comms who would calm y'all down? You guys are going crazy and need to focus on something? I honestly don't know. I'd like to think I am sometimes, but I don't think I do it enough. But that's like the only issue with like whenever you get super hyped in the comms and shit and you're commenting a lot, you need to like take yourself out of the moment and just calm down. Or else like if you keep that, like I feel like you play based off like your comms, like in a way. Like if you're commenting super frantic, super fast, is good sometimes, but if you stay like, you know, comment super fast, like rushing everything, you're going to be rushing like your situationals, and sometimes it's bad. So it is very important to have someone in the comms just basically say like, yo, like calm down, like, you know what I'm saying? I think that's one thing I've realized from the last two majors. I finally realized it in the last one. I think we need to get a little bit better at like slowing it down and like resetting, because I feel like we're such a momentum team, and if let's say we get put in a bad like a bad stretch of the game, like let's say hardpoint, we go down 60 points, like we need to be able to like reset, calm down, and get back in the game and in full 60 like the next hill.
Dude, you guys want me to come back 3 splits in with no practice, and there's a match on Saturday. You guys are out of your right minds. You guys are out of your right minds.
But what do you guys think about what Scump has to say on his team and his situation over there at OpTic Texas, right? Because, look, it was a big talking point on the stream this last weekend. Zinni mentioned it. Bose mentioned it. Karma responded to the idea as well that maybe Scump should make his glorious return and save the roster, right? I think for Scump, there's a couple of considerations here. The main one is the team with me going to win? And if no, then there's no point. On some level, there's no real point. And I think that's the frustrating thing, because Scump has at least entertained the idea. Like, in his head, he's considered the idea. Hex has probably had the conversation with him about it. Is that enough to justify Scump coming out of retirement? Probably not on its own. Would the team be better with Scump? Could Scump still do a job for OpTic Gaming? I think absolutely he could. I mean, it's kind of wild to think about the fact that we're talking about a player who's not played this game competitively this year, frankly, just watched it, really. And we're pretty confident that Scump's just that good that if he came back in, maybe on a flex for Skyz or something like that, the team would probably get better. And maybe the team would have a little bit more of that kind of like OG I don't know, accountability. I'm not saying Scump's necessarily the accountability man. I mean, that really should be Karma. Certainly back in the day it was Kremp, right? And he's still there with OpTic to some degree, to maybe they could consider it. But it's been a general feeling of mine that, you know, when things go wrong for OpTic, there needs to be some level of accountability. And I'm not sure that, you know, ever since Kremp has left, and certainly since Kenny's gone, I'm not sure those standards are necessarily being upheld. And, you know, I think those standards were upheld last year. Right? It was a big talking point last year when Kenny and Pred would go at it in process episodes, and it was quite clear that Kenny was like, look, this is a big mistake, we're not going to do this again. And absolutely make sure we're not doing this again, because we're going to call out whoever does it incredibly harshly if they do. So that's the kind of discussion anyway, is that maybe OpTic need like an OG voice like that back in the server. Of course, they should have Karma for that job, to be fair, and maybe he does it perfectly well. But I don't know, Scump coming back would surely motivate the troops, right, to some degree. But also, for Scump's perspective, do you want to come back and, like, I know the Scump is very focused on like his legacy, he doesn't want to come back and stink up the joints, then it wouldn't look very good. You know, I get that. And for Scump, like, if I was Scump, I wouldn't do it. Why would you do it? You're coming back into a broken team that's probably going to blow it up in the off-season anyway. You're coming back to, what, help them make champs and then compete at champs and everything, having not played in ages, and the matches begin tomorrow. It just doesn't really make much sense, especially if Scump becomes back and struggles, because let's be real here, Scump isn't dropping back into the surf and dropping 1.2s. Like, you know, he might drop 1.05, he might drop 0.95, someone in that kind of ballpark, and it's not really, you know, look, unless OpTic and Hex are going to say, look, Seth, we'll give you X to make this happen, then it's probably not going to be happening regardless. But intrigued to your thoughts on the comments below as always, because certainly some talk about whether it could be time for Scump to make his, you know, grand return at some point in the near future. The iLLeY situation's always kind of fascinating too. Obviously, Rambo was talking about it a fair bit, saying that there's some degree of politics involved, which is pretty interesting. In my opinion, he's probably just not been good enough, right? I think that's the end of the line, is that this year in Challenges, just not been a great year for him, really. And with that being said, you've got to expect that there will be problems when it comes to iLLeY actually getting an opportunity once again. Not sure what pro teams would, you know, would want him, would look for him. And it's understandable there would be some hesitation there because his results in challenges and his performances haven't really been good enough. But, you know, it's not over yet. DreamHack is the big event in Dallas. And then if iLLeY was to do very well there, potentially win the whole thing, then he would be able to rock up to Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, where he could potentially prove himself once again against the pros. So, you know, it's just interesting, right? Because with OpTic and all the drama going on there, one might have expected, certainly as of a couple of years ago, one might have expected to say, oh, well, iLLeY at least would be a consideration. But realistically, has anyone talked about iLLeY as an option, really, for this team? Like, right now, no, not really, until people are starting to discuss it yesterday, and Rambo says, probably not going to be happening for X, Y, Z reasons. But very much interested to your thoughts on all of this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.